What's up guys, it's Phil, and I've got another quick tip for you today. So if you've been watching my updates, you've seen that I've been doing a lot of projects, and with projects comes money and paychecks. But one thing that I have seen a lot floating through my makers groups and things like that on Facebook and other forums, and also I've got this question a lot on Instagram specifically, is how do you price your products? Now, it's not directed necessarily at me in particular, but people who are wanting to get into selling their products want to know, how do I price my products? So today I thought I would answer that question. It is something that I have learned over time, and this is my own personal formula, so feel free to use it. I feel like it's a great formula because it's what I use every day as a full-time professional woodworker. But if you are just a crafter or a maker, or you want to do something on your own and you just don't know how to price your products, here's what I think you should do. So I'm going to give you 3 different formulas today. Now, the first one is the main one, which is how do you price your products? And here it is. It looks complicated, it's kind of algebraic, but it's not really that hard. I'm going to explain it to you in just 1 minute. Now, please don't take this formula and run with it and hope that you're going to understand it and that this is going to work for you. It's not unless you understand. So please watch this video in its entirety as I'm going to explain what all of the maths mean to this formula here. So when perusing the formulas online, a lot of people ask, how do I price my products? And the main response I see is materials times 2. And that's an okay process if you're just getting started, or if you are a crafter and your materials cost, $5, $10 and you want to sell it for $10, $15, $20, that makes sense. When we're talking about really nice woodworking products or a really super nice craft, when you're talking about a dining table or a custom woodworking piece, a built-in entertainment center, whatnot, that formula does not work. In fact, that formula will end up costing you money over time, and that is not a good thing if you're trying to do this professionally, or if you just want to make money as a side gig doing woodworking or making. So the basic formula of materials times 2 doesn't necessarily work. If your materials cost you $1.50, but you want to sell it for $10, clearly you're not going to sell it for $3. So that already is out the door. If I'm going to make a dining table and it costs me $125 in materials, and I'm going to sell it for $300, that actually seems okay. But it took me 3 or 4 days to make it, plus it's probably not the highest quality. So that can be a problem as well. Once you start getting into Etsy or Big Cartel or any of those other places to sell your products, or if you're going to an art show or something, you really want to up your game. So I recommend you modify that with what is called margin. So profit margin is a percentage above your cost and your time. So take this formula for example. That works out pretty simply like this. Your M is your materials, your T is the time it's going to take you to make it, and your D is your daily rate. So if you can figure out those 3 things, you know what your price is. Materials is pretty simple. It's the materials that it costs you to make that product. T is also pretty simple. It's how long it takes you to make it. Now I recommend you break this down to hours. So if it took you 3 or 4 hours to make a craft, if it took you, 12 hours to build a dining table, log exactly how many hours it took you to make that particular product. Now D is a little more complicated. D is your daily rate. Now just for an example, I have worked it out that for myself, I need to make a minimum of $250 per day in order to keep this business running, to pay myself and whatnot. Now clearly $250 a day is not going to keep me going. I still need to make a profit. But from the idea of working for myself, as in if I worked for someone else, they would need to pay me so much per day, and that would be my salary. So my personal salary is around $250 per day. So that's going to be my baseline number. So for me, in this and all other equations, D is going to be 250. You can figure out for yourself what your D is going to be. But D, being your daily rate, is how much you need to make per month, broken down into weeks, broken down into days, broken down into hours, Now you can figure out if T is 2 days times D, which is 250, that bracket now becomes $500. M might be $125, and now I know that for $725, that is what the first bracket is for my table. Now, if you're doing work for friends and family, I've got a special formula for you right here. Now this formula is pretty cool. This is my friends and family formula. That's it. That's the whole formula. So when you're working for friends and family, the M in this case is materials, as it always is. The T is time. This is an hourly time, because typically when friends and family ask you for help, it's like, hey, come over on Saturday and help me install something, help me put something together. It's not going to take you more than 2, 3, 4 hours. The B in this case is beer. So when I'm doing work for friends and family, it is the material cost plus my time times the amount of beers I can drink in that time. So that one's free. That's a pretty simple formula. Again, that's a PMK formula that I've figured out over years of doing this for people. Take that one, put it in your back pocket. Back to the main formula. So the biggest thing about this formula is that you need to make sure that you are getting paid for your time. You also need to make sure that you have added in a little bit of extra time so that you can go back and fix mistakes and things like that that always happen in woodworking, crafting, and making. You also need to make sure that you have a contingency on materials. In other industries like screen printing, that is what we call spoilage. So you know that you might have 5 sheets of plywood set aside for this project, but oh, you F something up and now you have to get another sheet of plywood. You need to make sure that you have that contingency in the budget somewhere. So that's where the beginning part of this formula is. So let's break this down just a little bit. So the first part of this formula is P, which is your price, okay? Now P equals, first step, first set of brackets, M times 1.5. Obviously, M is your materials. So in this case, your materials times 1.5. Now the reason I do that is because let's say I'm going to go and purchase materials and all of the plywood, all of the trim pieces and everything that I'm going to purchase, screws and all, glue and everything, just materials is going to cost me $111. But I screw up and I need to go buy another piece of plywood. Well, using birch plywood, it's going to cost me about $60. Now I'm at $170 in materials. You see what I mean? So if I multiply my materials by 1.5, I have a little bit of extra room built in there in case I need to buy new materials. Also in case the customer comes by and says, oh, I don't really like that paint color. You need to buy another paint color. Or, oh, that hardware is not really what I thought it was going to be. You need to replace all the hardware. You've already spent $23 on one set of hardware, and now you're going to go spend another $23 on another set of hardware, and chances are you can't return that first set once it's been opened. So you need to have those contingencies in place. So M times 1.5. That's your first bracket. So take your materials, multiply it by 1.5, set that number off to the side for a second. All right, now we're moving on to the second bracket. Plus T times D. Now I talked a little bit about this already, but your T is your time that you're going to be putting into the project, and your D is your daily pay. Now if your time is only going to be, let's say 4 hours on a project, that's where we get into decimals. So if your time is half of a day, you do 0.5 times D. Like myself, I'm working on custom built-ins right now. Each one is taking 3 to 4 days. So I know it's 3 times D or 4 times D. That's pretty simple for your full daily rate. I also know that a dining table is going to take me 1 1/2 days. So for a dining table, I would do 1.75 or 2 times my daily rate. So you've got your first number, which is your materials times 1.5. You've got your second number, which is your time times your daily rate. Add those two together, and you've now got a pretty good idea of what this project is going to cost you. Now let me stop for a second here. It's going to cost you this because it is going to cost you this much in materials, and you might have to buy some more materials, and you need to pay yourself this much in order to actually make this project happen and still make a living and make this worth your time. So take those two numbers and add them together. That is what the total cost is on this project for materials and time to have it built and be done. Now there's a very tiny bit of margin that, let's say you didn't waste any materials and let's say you got it done really, really quickly and it looks awesome. Yeah, there's a little bit of profit in there. but there's really not a lot, and there's absolutely no retail profit in there. So now you take that number and multiply it by 2. This gives you the price that you can now work with to give your client. So to reiterate, your price is your materials times 1.5 added to the time it's going to take you to do the project multiplied by your daily rate, those two numbers added together, then multiplied by 2. That gives you that number that you can now pitch to your client. I know it seems kind of high, but that is what profit is. That is what retail margin is. That extra room there is what you have when something goes wrong, when the customer decides that the color isn't right, when it's taken you way too long to do the project. That money is already there that you can cover that and still make a profit. That's also where, if you are getting into wholesaling, you do not multiply it by 2. You would take that original number and maybe multiply it by 1.1 or 1.25. And that gives you a pretty good margin where you're still making money, but you can mass produce for someone else who's going to multiply it by 2, 2.5, 3 or so, and they're going to make their money. So one more time, just to make it simple, your price needs to be your materials cost times 1.5 for spoilage, added to the time it's going to take you, multiplied by your daily rate that you need to get paid to make this worth your time. Take that total number, multiply the whole thing by 2, and now you've got a good starting point. And if that price is low enough that your clients go for it, great. If that price is a little too high, you've just multiplied it by 2. So jump back on your calculator, multiply it by 1.5, and make up some garbage as to why you accidentally calculated wrong or whatever. But that will get you down to give you a little bit of room where you're still making profit no matter what, but you can negotiate with people a little bit if you have to. My biggest tip is don't negotiate with people. Set your price using this formula and let that be it. That is your bottom dollar as far as they're concerned, because you're trying to do this for a living. Make sure that you are getting paid what you're worth. And if you're wondering why I'm giving away my formula for free, here's the honest truth. We all need to charge more as makers, as creators, and especially as woodworkers. If you're a woodworker putting out dining room tables, you better be using this formula or charging more than I am. Because here's the deal. The more you charge, the more money we all make. Here in the Nashville area, there is a huge problem with every Tom, Dick, and Harry going out into their garage, slapping together an Anna White farmhouse table and selling it for $300. Why? Because they're a jobber. A jobber is someone who has a job already and doesn't give a crap on whether they actually make money or not on their dining tables. Meanwhile, someone like me who is doing this full time and trying to support a family and build a business, I'm losing clients to that person because their pictures look good on Facebook. Now, their table's going to fall apart within 6 months when the humidity changes, and mine's going to last 25, 30, 40 years. But people don't know that just from perusing Facebook. I'm not trying to downplay the beginners. I started exactly where you guys are, so I'm not saying that anything you're doing is wrong. But for God's sake, charge more money. What you're doing is worth so much more than you're charging. If you're selling your dining tables for $300 or $400, that means one of two things. You either know that what you're putting out there is not good enough to charge enough money, or you're not charging enough money for the good quality you're putting out. If you don't want to be the first one, you need to get better and then charge more. If you are the second one, you need to be charging more, because the more money you charge is the more money I can charge. If we're all charging $1,200, $1,300 per table, and they're all the same good quality and good craftsmanship, we won't have to worry about, am I charging too little? Am I charging too much? The market will level itself out. So that's it for me, guys. That is my formula. Please use it. It is super, super, super simple. I know there's a lot of stuff out there on YouTube and on Facebook on how to do this kind of stuff, but the most simple way to price all of your projects is by using this formula. It's very simple. It takes just a little bit of time to sit down and actually figure out what all of these numbers are. I know it's a little bit of algebra. I didn't like algebra. I failed out of it in college twice, but that's why I'm a custom woodworker now. Those are jokes. But the point is, this is a super easy formula that you can use, and it is much, much, much more effective than materials times 2.5 or whatever garbage you're seeing on somebody's Pinterest page, okay? Take it from me, I'm a professional woodworker, this is the real deal, this is what I still use today when I'm pricing certain products. So please, take this, use it, you charge more, so I can charge more, and we can all be happy in this industry. Thanks for watching, guys. I really hope this has helped. Hey, make sure to subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do it. If you have subscribed, go ahead and click on that bell. Get those notifications. I've got a lot of DIY videos coming up, and I've got more quick tips just like this one, which wasn't really super quick, kind of long, but whatever. And I've got my updates. So definitely check those out. Make sure to subscribe. Definitely check those out. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to turn on your notifications. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.